It's a fascinating thing, isn't it? When you look at someone who's really made a mark, like John Romero, the creator of Doom, Quake, Wolfenstein 3D, these massive games.
Icons.
Right. And you might not realize the full story, the often really unexpected background that shaped them. Going through his autobiography, Doom Guy, it really hits you. His journey wasn't just about coding, or level design. Right at the start, he talks about a family history involving, quote, tremendous success in dealing drugs and drinking vast amounts of alcohol.
Wow. Quite an opening line.
Yeah. It really grabs you. And it makes you wonder, how did all that stuff intertwine with creating these legendary games?
Well, and what's fascinating, I think, is how he just puts that duality right out there. No polishing,
No, not at all.
It's not the usual rags to riches, everything was perfect narrative. He's giving this raw look at a really complex background and suggesting, sort of, that these contrasting elements, the turbulence, the drive, it's all connected to his path.
Yeah, the ambition, too.
Yeah, the ambition. And it's interesting, he notes his own son and stepkids are now in the game industry, too. So there's this lineage, but definitely in a different field than some of the relatives he mentions.
Absolutely. And for listeners, this isn't just like a career recap. It's really about digging into those foundational experiences, right?
Yeah.
The sparks that kind of ignited everything. Like his grandmother, Socorro, or Suki.
Yeah.
She was the heart of his Mexican heritage, and food was just central. He talks about her family recipe binder. You can almost smell the kitchen,
Yeah, that image of a nurturing space, it provides this sense of grounding in his early life, doesn't it?
It really does. And if you connect that to the bigger picture, you see how these early influences, both the comforting ones and the chaotic ones, they formed a base.
Right. Suki's nurturing side highlights, maybe, the importance of that stable foundation that might have been missing elsewhere. And that recipe binder, it's like a symbol, isn't it, of history, tradition, things that can anchor you when stuff gets turbulent.
Yeah, definitely. Then you have the tougher parts, like his father's alcoholism. Romero is really upfront about the impact, the unpredictability, the anger, that feeling of walking on eggshells all the time.
He shares some really rough stories.
He does. Really impactful, unsettling anecdotes, like his father dragging his mother by the hair. It's just stark. And you can see how experiences like that might instill that intense drive he talks about to take nothing for granted.
Yeah, it's like he learned really early on that stability wasn't a given, It wasn't guaranteed.
Right.
And it makes you wonder, doesn't it, how adversity shapes creative people. He's not just listing hardships. He's suggesting it fueled his ambition. Maybe this deep need to build his own stable world through games.
That makes sense.
That feeling of, precariousness in childhood. It can often come out later as this powerful need for control, for achievement.
But it wasn't all hardship, was it? His mother, her pursuit of happiness, that eventually led to a really pivotal moment. His first computer.
Right. Kind of a poetic twist.
Yeah. This tool for creation, this potential escape route, it comes out of this desire for something better. And then his stepfather, John Schooneman, at first it seemed okay, like a honeymoon period, maybe a glimpse of normalcy, but then the violence came back in, that jarring incident where he got punched.
Yeah.
So again, this really complex family dynamic, these sporadic bursts of aggression. It seems like he processed it all through his interests as a kid and teenager.
And what's really interesting there is how he processed it. Like the Melvin comic strip he made.
Oh, yeah.
It's like a form of self-expression, right?
Yeah.
A way to externalize and comment on the aggression he was seeing. It's kind of a mix of humor and social commentary. Yeah. Taking these painful things and reframing them creatively.
That's a really key insight, I think, into how he channeled struggles early on.
Definitely.
And then his world starts to expand beyond home. His friendship with Christian Divine, that opens up this whole new thing with comics and, crucially, advanced Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, D&D.
Yeah. You can see the, really early seeds of collaborative storytelling and world building being planted right there. Skills that would be fundamental later. Think about Doom or Quake's worlds.
Totally. And AD&D specifically, it really cultivates that ability to create rule-based systems, right? And develop stories within those rules. It's like a training ground for game mechanics and lore, even if it's just around a table. And that dynamic he mentions, with Christian trying to kill the character while Romero kept him alive, that sort of foreshadows the player versus game dynamic later on.
That's a great point. And then fueling all that imagination, arcade games.
Oh yeah, the golden age.
His dedication to his paper route. All those quarters saved up.
Hard-earned cash.
Right. Fed into machines like Space Invaders, and especially asteroids. He specifically talks about asteroids and its greater freedom of movement, that liberating sensation.
And you can draw a straight line from that feeling to the fast-paced, fluid movement in his later games, can't you?
Absolutely. That philosophy permeates Doom and Quake.
It's that connection, isn't it, between the early passions and the later creations. Asteroids, with its omnidirectional movement, you can see how that directly influenced the feel of his shooters. It wasn't just playing games, it was internalizing what makes them fun.
But the one game, he says, truly changed him.
Pac-Man.
Pac-Man, yeah. He calls it this joyous, spontaneous mind meld with the maze, the innovative design, virtual tag. It was just a revelation for him. You can almost feel that spark it ignited.
Well, Pac-Man was a huge step, wasn't it? It wasn't just shooting anymore. It had character, a clear goal, that risk-reward thing.
Yeah, the ghosts.
Exactly. And the impact he describes, it just shows how deeply immersed he was, how he could really analyze and appreciate innovative design, which is, crucial for a creator.
Okay, so the spark of creation itself. When did that really hit? It seems like it was when Rob Lovelock showed him machine language while playing Gorgon on the Apple II.
Right, that moment.
Romero's reaction that it looked like ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics? I think a lot of us can relate to that feeling when first seeing code.
Totally. It's intimidating.
But Rob's simple statement, that's what you need to learn to make video games. Boom. That was the catalyst, wasn't it?
That's the pivot point, yeah. Where playing turns into wanting to build. Seeing the code, even if it's initially gibberish, kind of demystifies it. It plants that seed. These things are made by people with skills, and I can learn those skills.
And his mother, again, playing this supportive role.
Yeah.
Connecting him with Captain Spencer at the Aggressor Squadron. That weird request for a protocol demonstration. It hints at Romero having this, inherent technical aptitude, even early on. He just got how systems worked.
It also shows his ability to seize an opportunity, doesn't it? He doesn't hesitate. He shows what he knows, even in a weird setting. That confidence, even when he's still learning, seems to be a recurring thing.
Yeah, it really does. And even something seemingly unrelated, like the Disneyland trip after graduation, the Matterhorn breaks down, and seeing behind the scenes the guts of a non-existent mountain, he said it didn't ruin the magic for him.
Which is interesting, right?
Yeah. It's like he understood the mechanics, the artifice, but still appreciated the whole creation.
And that gives you a real insight into his creative mindset, I think. He can deconstruct it, see how the illusion works, but it doesn't lessen his appreciation. It probably deepens his understanding of how to make those immersive worlds himself.
So that growing desire to create, it eventually clashes with college, right? Data processing, flowcharts, it just wasn't grabbing him.
Not his thing.
The real revolution was happening outside the classroom. That realization, every minute I spent in class was time I was falling behind. That says so much about his drive, his understanding of the tech scene.
He saw where the action was.
So he quits, makes the move to California, wanting to be closer to the game industry.
Which was a big decision, right? Foregoing that traditional path to just chase his passion. It shows his focus, his accurate read on where things were happening. A risk, but a calculated one.
That brings him back to the Lovelocks, this time in Yuba City. And eventually, he needs his own place. I mean, sharing with 3 teenage boys and an aquarium business co-founder sounds lively.
A bit chaotic, maybe.
Yeah, but it's another stepping stone. And even that little story about Kelly visiting late and his stepfather's strict no extramarital sex rule, it kind of highlights his focus on avoiding conflict, maybe a survival tactic from earlier.
Could be. These transitional moments, even the seemingly small details, they reveal things.
Yeah.
He's navigating these personal dynamics, but his main focus is clearly on breaking into the game industry.
And then Richard Garriott enters the picture. The rock star of the game industry, Romero calls him.
Bored British, yeah.
His admiration is just palpable. Garriott was doing exactly what Romero wanted to do, but bigger. That visit to the Origin Systems booth at Applefest, he said it felt magical. You can feel that aspiration.
Garriott was a huge role model then. Someone who started small, made it big. Romero sees a path, a real possibility for his own ambitions. Standing at the front door of the industry, as he put it.
And in this moment of just pure audacity, Romero shows Ultima Eye to an Origin marketing guy at Applefest and just flat out asks for a job.
Gotta love that.
I mean, talk about seizing the moment.
That's a defining trait, isn't it? That willingness to just go for it. He's not waiting for an invite. He's making his own opportunity. That confidence, even when he's basically unknown, It's pretty remarkable.
And it works. The interview at Origin in New Hampshire,
Yeah.
he felt like he was at a party with members of my tribe. Finally, right. Among people who got his passion for programming and games.
Must have felt incredible, that validation.
Yeah, after maybe feeling like an outsider.
That sense of belonging, finding your tribe, it's so crucial for creatives. Being around people who get it, it fosters growth, collaboration.
And then his first week at Origin, his game Major Mayhem is on the cover of Nibble magazine.
Talk about timing.
Incredible timing instantly boosts his rep, and his manager, John Fraccini, becomes this important mentor figure, giving him those crucial early insights. Things like salary expectations and that basic principle, the more responsibility you take on, the more money you'll be paid. Simple advice, maybe, but priceless when you're starting out.
Yeah, that practical real-world knowledge. It complements the technical skill and passion, doesn't it? Understanding the business side is often just as vital.
Romero's resourcefulness just shines through, too. He sees Origin doesn't have a good way to port games between different computers, so what does he do?
It just builds one.
Just builds one, soldering wires, connecting an Apple IGs to a Commodore 64. It sounds super technical, but he just figures it out, and bam, gets a big raise for it.
See that proactive problem-solving, that I can figure this out attitude? That's the hallmark of real innovation. He sees a need, uses his skills, engineers a solution, shows his value.
And right in the middle of all this career takeoff, life happens. His son Michael is born during a massive snowstorm.
Wow.
That personal detail really grounds this period of intense work, doesn't it?
It really does. It reminds you that personal and professional lives overlap, even during those super focused times. The frozen car doors, the rush to the hospital, adds a very human touch.
But even with the success at Origin, he starts getting restless. He notices not everyone has the same tolerance for friction he developed growing up. Starts feeling he needs to be more proactive about choosing collaborators.
Team dynamics become important.
Yeah. Then the Tower Talter project hits some snags, and Kelly's pregnancy prompts a move back to California.
So these experiences, they're highlighting his growing awareness of team dynamics, the importance of a shared vision. He's learning about the people side of making games, not just the tech.
Back in California, he teams up with Lane Roth, forms Ideas from the Deep. And get this, they're coding, fueled by metal music. Skid Row, Dokken, Mötley Crüe, working on the Dark Castle port.
Huh. That sounds about right for the era.
Yeah, and amidst all that energy, he's actively looking for the next big thing.
That period with Lane shows his drive, his adaptability. Setbacks don't stop him. He just finds new avenues.
Which eventually leads him to Jay Wilbur at Softdisk in Shreveport, Louisiana. And the way he gets the job highlighting his Origin work, even recommending Lane, it really underlines that value of networking, of seizing opportunities.
He's building and using his connections, using past success to open new doors. And bringing Lane along shows loyalty, too.
And it's at Softdisk where he first crosses paths with John Carmack.
Ah, the legendary duo begins.
Yeah. Even before meeting him, Romero was blown away by Carmack's game, Tennis. The fluid animation, the physics working on an Apple II, which was super rare. He recognized a great programmer.
That early respect for Carmack's technical skill really sets the stage, doesn't it?
Yeah.
He saw someone pushing the limits of the hardware.
Those intense programmer speak sessions he describes with Carmack, Lane, Big Al Vacovius, diving deep into assembler memory maps on the Apple II, a machine that was, let's face it, primitive by today's standards.
Totally.
It just highlights their incredible technical depth. They were kings of the computer stone age, as Romero put it.
It really underscores the ingenuity needed back then. They had to optimize everything. Every line of code mattered.
And then there's that legendary, almost mythical story of Carmack's teenage Apple II Senos heist using thermite paste.
Oh yeah, that story, it's wild.
It really reveals this audacious, intensely technical side of Carmack's personality, doesn't it?
It definitely shows his focus and willingness to take extreme measures for his interests. It's a pretty famous anecdote in the early dev community.
Adrian Carmack, no relation, joins Softdisk's art department. He and Romero hit it off immediately over metal music.
Another metalhead connection.
Yep. And their shared interest in Dungeons & Dragons becomes another key bonding element, fostering that collaborative world-building spirit again. Carmack was the DM, leading them through his eerie, dark fantasy world.
So D&D keeps popping up as this significant influence. A shared creative space for narrative, world design, problem solving.
Then comes Carmack's breakthrough. The CRTC experiments allowing smooth vertical scrolling. Romero sees it, gets the potential instantly, but his vision goes further. Smooth, seemingly endless horizontal scrolling.
Right. Which leads to
the Dangerous Dave and copyright infringement demo.
That demo was a huge technical leap, right? A major advance for the Apple II. And Romero immediately saw how it could revolutionize side-scrollers.
But the reaction from their colleagues at Big Blue Disc? Nah.
Yeah.
That's really neat. Romero couldn't believe it. He felt like he was showing them the coding version of the Rosetta Stone, and they just didn't get the significance.
It's a classic case, isn't it? A revolutionary idea being initially overlooked. His frustration really shows how convinced he was of its importance.
The first bits of fan mail start arriving, and while Romero's honored, he's just too swamped to reply personally. It's an early sign of that growing developer-player connection even before the internet really took off.
Yeah, even without forums, players were finding ways to connect. Those early letters were the very first seeds of the communities to come.
Then Scott Miller from Apogee Software enters the scene with his innovative shareware distribution model.
Game changer, literally.
Absolutely. It offered a crucial way for independent developers to get their games directly to players, bypassing traditional publishers.
It really democratized game distribution for indies. Super important to understand how that shifted things.
And Romero's pitch to Scott, saying their current game was light years cooler than Apogee's Pyramids, even though Softdisk owned it.
That confidence again. Bold move.
Yeah. And Scott's immediate interest just sets the stage for their next big leap.
He sees the potential, right?
Yeah.
And isn't afraid to advocate for their work, even with tricky ownership stuff. That conviction is key.
That quick brainstorming session follows, leading to Commander Peen. Tom Hall just rapidly develops the initial concept. It really shows how well they could collaborate and spin up compelling ideas fast.
Totally highlights the synergy between Romero, Carmack, and Hall. They could take a basic idea and quickly flesh it out into something really engaging.
So the newly formed id Software starts seeing incredible financial success through Apogee, and they're super frugal, saving almost everything. That sudden wealth, after growing up with financial insecurity, must have been a massive shift.
Well, that financial success gives them freedom, right? Freedom to experiment, to pursue their vision without the usual constraints. It's a huge turning point, letting them take bigger risks.
They start working on more advanced Keen engines, Carmack's getting deeper into video graphics cards, and Keen Dreams comes out as this side project for Softdisk, but it's really a valuable way for them to experiment with the new tech.
Yeah, Keen Dreams is like a test bed. Allows them to refine their tech, get ready for the more ambitious stuff they had planned.
Romero's interest in the business side of id really starts growing here. He feels they need more strategic planning. He explicitly wants to avoid it becoming like inside-out software, which hints at, lessons learned from past gigs.
Right, so he's not just focused on the creative side. He's thinking about long-term sustainability, company growth. That business sense is critical for their future success.
The decision to finally leave Shreveport cements their independence from Softdisk. Jay Wilbur stays behind. Now it's the core four: Carmack, Adrian, Tom, and Romero, each with a quarter ownership of id Software.
That's a big step. Complete creative and financial control. They're truly independent now, charting their own course.
And their choice of Madison, Wisconsin as the new HQ. Kind of unexpected, right? Not exactly a tech hub.
Yeah, why Madison?
Well, Tom Hall had connections there, but mostly it was about their practical needs as programmers. Cheap rent, reliable electricity, and pizza.
The essentials.
Exactly. Sometimes the most crucial factors are the most basic,
Their priorities show their focus. They just needed a functional, affordable place to work without distractions. Location was secondary.
The actual move is kind of funny in retrospect. Their computers were top priority, way above personal stuff, and no backups except what was on those machines.
Wow, talk about high stakes.
Right. All their digital eggs in one very fragile basket.
It really highlights how much they valued their work, their tools. Those computers were their livelihoods.
Their first office setup in Madison was also super basic. Carmack apparently slept on the floor initially until Romero bought him a mattress.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. Speaks volumes about their dedication, maybe a certain disregard for comfort in those intense early days.
Their commitment to the work clearly outweighed personal comfort back then. A testament to their shared passion, their willingness to sacrifice.
And then the concept for Wolfenstein 3D emerges. A self-described 3D World War II Nazi blast fest.
Iconic.
Totally. And Randy McClane's initial hesitation about the idea is pretty funny now, considering the game's massive success.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that even groundbreaking ideas can face skepticism initially, even from people in the industry.
Development involved using TED 5 for level design, modifying the MUSE sound system. But the key shift was towards fast-paced run and gun. They realized that was the core fun, not slower stuff.
Which underscores the importance of playtesting, iterating on that core gameplay loop. They weren't afraid to ditch features that didn't feel right, focusing on what was exciting.
Then there's a last-minute scramble to stop Kevin Cloud from signing a lease back in Shreveport because they suddenly decided to move to Texas instead.
Another spontaneous move. Seems characteristic.
Yeah, seems like another chaotic, but ultimately good turn for them. Shows their flexibility, maybe. Willingness to act fast. The visual style of Wolfenstein 3D, undeniably groundbreaking for the time, even with the tech limits leading to some, repetitive level design.
Sure, the mazes could feel similar.
But those visceral blood and guts details and the simple, engaging premise just made it huge.
It was a technical marvel for its era, yeah. And that combo of violence and a clear goal just resonated. It pushed boundaries, basically created the FPS genre as we know it.
Romero then takes the initiative to create the IC and de-ICE installation programs. Not just for their games, but for Apogees too, streamlining the whole shareware process for lots of indies.
That shows his understanding of the bigger picture, the indie ecosystem. Willing to contribute tools that help the whole scene, not just id.
The moment they upload the Wolfenstein 3D shareware version, 4 a.m., that feeling Romero describes, that everything was going to change from that day onward, they knew, didn't they?
They had a strong sense they'd made something big. That anticipation, that feeling a shift was coming. It speaks to their confidence in the game and the impact they expected.
And the success was massive, way bigger than Keen, like 10 times bigger, hundreds of thousands in sales in the first month, financial security they'd never known.
Huge. That success validates their vision, obviously, but also gives them the resources for even more ambitious projects. A life-changing moment.
But even in that whirlwind, Romero understood the importance of networking, building relationships in the industry. And he starts noticing some concerning things about Apogee's order-taking process.
Like what?
Including, hilariously, rubber band wars breaking out in the unsupervised sales room.
Seriously, huh?
Yeah, so his focus isn't just on the games. He's watching the business side, seeing potential issues, risks.
Smart.
And this growing concern ultimately leads to the decision to distribute their next big game themselves. The clock was ticking on that Apogee partnership.
Makes sense.
And then this unexpected call comes in from Atari. They want Wolfenstein 3D for the Lynx handheld. Tom Hall even quickly designs a mascot, Pounce the Lynx.
Wow, Atari. That shows how big Wolfenstein had gotten. Their influence was growing fast.
Yeah.
Even if the deal didn't fully happen in the end.
Right. So they agree to make Spear of Destiny for FormGen, while Carmack starts work on the new Shadowcaster engine. And they smartly outsource the Super Nintendo port of Wolfenstein to another developer, Robin, to free up their own time.
Learning to delegate, expand strategically.
Exactly. They're showing more strategic management, focusing their core team where it matters most, leveraging external talent for other opportunities. The packaging for Spear of Destiny becomes a point of pride. Their names are finally on the box. Yeah. Adrian gets credited as master of the pixel, and then the Ferraris.
Ah, yes, the legendary Ferraris.
Carmack gets a red one, Romero buys his Miata first, then a Ferrari later. Clear symbols of their success.
Yeah, iconic symbols of their achievement. The rewards for all that hard work and innovation. Big contrast to the early struggles.
They move into a new, more pro-office space, the Black Cube, hire their essential id mom, Donna Jackson, and they invest in cutting-edge Next Step workstations.
Which were way ahead of standard PCs back then.
Huge upgrade. Better environment, better tools.
Those Next Step machines gave them a serious technical advantage, allowed them to develop more complex stuff more efficiently, a strategic investment in their future work.
And then the name, Doom, inspired by a line from The Color of Money.
Perfect name. Simple, evocative, captures that hellish vibe.
Totally. Tom Hall starts writing this extensive Doom Bible full of story lore.
Right, the narrative approach.
But Romero's vision is different. Faster, more brutal, survival focus, prioritizing that visceral thrill over complex narrative. And this early difference in design philosophy, it kind of hints at future creative tensions, doesn't it?
Yeah, that divergence becomes pretty significant later. Romero wanting intense action, Hall wanting more story, different visions for where the company should go.
But back then, in the land of id, Carmack's engines still pretty much dictated the look and feel. With Doom, though, they had the time and resources to actually influence the engine's development for the gameplay goals. That was a big shift.
Empowering, right?
Yeah, and the idea of an open game making it easy for players to mod Doom that came directly from the Wolfenstein 3D experience.
Recognizing the power of the modding community early on.
Yeah.
That was genius. Massively extended the lifespan and impact of their games.
So Doom development kicks off on those next step machines, Carmack on the engine, Romero on DoomEd, the level editor. That iterative process, constantly playtesting, refining levels, becomes central for Romero.
That hands-on, iterative level design, playing through countless times. That's key to understanding his process. It's about the feel, the flow, not just the tech.
Even designing the weapons got a bit playful. A toy shotgun, Tom Hall's leaky Eager Beaver chainsaw used as reference models. It's a fun glimpse into that chaotic but creative studio vibe.
Totally humanizes the intense dev process, that mix of high-tech and playful creativity.
Then there's the disappointment of finding a bunch of undelivered Doom pre-orders right before Christmas. Highlights the challenges of scaling up fast, relying on distributors.
Yeah, a reminder that even with a great product, logistics and supply chain issues can still bite you.
But amidst those hurdles, Doom unintentionally leads to the birth of speedrunning, thanks to the part times and players figuring out how to optimize keystrokes.
Amazing, unintended consequence.
And the revolutionary deathmatch mode undeniably paves the way for esports. Doom wasn't just a game, it was a cultural phenomenon.
For sure. These unexpected outcomes show the far-reaching impact, shaping not just how games were played, but the whole culture around them.
Romero becomes the de facto spokesperson for id, kind of by default, because the others weren't keen or it wasn't their expertise. And he and Carmack celebrate again with matching red and yellow Ferraris, living the game dev rockstar dream.
Those Ferraris became so iconic. Symbols of their success, their status in the growing game world.
There's even that sweet anecdote of Romero's mom playing Doom for the first time at Dublin Comic-Con.
Oh yeah, how'd she do?
Apparently her strategy was yelling, "Stand still so I can shoot you."
That's brilliant. Highlights the broad appeal, right? Reaching even non-gamers.
The Doom community just explodes. Romero gets more involved in managing licensing deals, interacting with players, wearing a lot of hats. Then Ron Chimowitz from GT Interactive makes the offer to sell their games in places like Walmart.
Huge opportunity. Mainstream reach.
Massive. Recognizing the importance of community engagement and seizing big retail opportunities like Walmart, crucial for expanding beyond direct sales, solidifying mainstream success. Level design for Doom 2 ramps up. American McGee joins the team. Romero keeps emphasizing his iterative playtesting, wanting each level to feel unique, memorable.
That focus on distinct level identity, refining through playtesting, shows his commitment to a high-quality, engaging experience.
The iconic Doom 2 box art gets commissioned from Gerald Brom. Steve Maines uses 3D Studio for that memorable 2. It's all coming together. And then Dwango appears.
Early online multiplayer service.
Right. Created by Bob Huntley and Ki Huang, Romero makes sure it works with Doom and Doom 2. Sees it as a win-win.
Yeah, Dwango is the start of dedicated online gaming. Romero supporting it shows his foresight, fostering those online communities.
But by this point, that divergence between Romero and Carmack's vision is getting clearer, more pronounced. Carmack's focus is laser sharp on technology. Romero's still passionate about game design, pushing what the engine can do.
And that growing tension is going to become a major issue, isn't it?
Yeah. Their different priorities, initially complementary, start creating real friction as their ambitions and directions diverge. Romero's initial ideas for the next big game, Quake, are super influenced by D&D. Powerful hero, medieval setting, a returning hammer weapon, a Hellgate cube, a silver dragon.
Sounds cool, but very different from Doom.
Totally. But Carmack has a different technical vision, separating the game engine from the gameplay itself.
Ah, the modular engine idea. Technically smart, forward-thinking, but it clashes with Romero's more integrated vision of gameplay and setting being tightly linked.
The Quake engine itself was ambitious. Gradient lighting, client-server model. Meanwhile, their partnership with Raven Software on Heretic showed the Doom engine still had legs.
Yeah, demonstrating their commitment to pushing tech boundaries, but also using existing tech for different genres.
Carmack hits major technical hurdles developing Quake, especially with lighting and perspective-correct textures without dedicated GPUs. American McGee actually moves in next door to Carmack, basically becoming a sounding board for these complex tech problems.
Wow. That shows how intense the Quake engine development was. A massive undertaking, requiring real innovation to overcome hardware limits.
Yeah, and development time stretches way longer than previous engines. But the vision is still huge. One of the first truly internet-aware games, persistent servers, team deathmatch.
They were aiming to revolutionize online multiplayer, accurately predicting the future of connected gaming, competitive play.
Their development process stays iterative, experimental, often prioritizing what the team thought was cool over strict design specs. And amidst all this, Romero buys his dad a house in Idaho.
That flexible approach allowed for creativity, sure, but also meant longer timelines, maybe some scope creep. And buying the house for his dad shows that desire to provide stability for his family.
He and his wife, Beth, start house hunting for themselves, but he starts noticing a growing distance between them. Around the same time, American McGee suggests 9 Inch Nails for the Quake soundtrack.
Trent Reznor, wow.
Yeah. Romero's skeptical at first, but eventually agrees.
That collaboration reflects a desire to push boundaries with game audio too, bring in a darker, more contemporary vibe. But the personal life distance kind of mirrors the creative tensions at work, maybe.
Possibly. The Quake engine is becoming technically amazing, but the actual gameplay lags behind for a long time, which messes with their usual iterative design and playtesting.
Yeah, that focus on engine tech first can sometimes create challenges in making sure the final gameplay is cohesive and fun.
Then Adrian Carmack and Kevin Cloud create these distinct, heavy metal-inspired textures influenced by American McGee. Leads to that instantly recognizable look of the Vaults of Zin level.
Shows that collaborative, cross-disciplinary process again. Art and design feeding off each other.
But the conflict between Romero and Carmack keeps escalating. Romero focusing on business development, Carmack wanting him solely on Quake gameplay. It reaches an impasse.
That fundamental disagreement over roles and priorities becomes the critical thing that eventually breaks up their partnership.
Despite the tension, they keep supporting Raven's work on Heretic, start planning Hexen and Hecatomb. They also discover and acquire the TNT Evolution Megawad for Doom, rebrand it as Final Doom, another release for early '96.
Strategic partnerships, opportunistic content buys, helped keep revenue flowing while Quake was still cooking, diversifying.
As the Quake engine finally nears completion, there's this internal debate about the game's direction. Romero wants to push beyond just another shooter, but the atmosphere in the war room gets super tense as release approaches.
The pressure to deliver this huge anticipated game, plus the differing visions, inevitably creates a stressful environment.
Then they release Q-Test, the early public multiplayer test, and it's a massive hit. Boosts team morale hugely and sparks the modding community even before the full game is out.
That positive public reaction validated their tech, right? And built immense hype for the final release.
They quickly agree to an official map pack, the Scourge of Armagon, by an external team. Romero even folds an early experimental Quake map into his final Episode 2 series, E2M6, including a little nod to Disneyland's Haunted Mansion.
Cool. Shows that fluid integration of early ideas, community feedback into the final game.
They add subtle motion blur on the intermission screens and make the groundbreaking decision for full mouse look. 360-degree aiming. Revolutionary for FPS games then.
Mouse look fundamentally changed how FPS games were played. Much more immersive, intuitive control became the standard.
Romero's new house in Frisco is finished, but when he moves in, he feels detached, like walking into someone else's life. His focus had been so intensely on shipping Quake.
That's poignant. Really highlights the personal dedication, the sacrifices that go into these huge projects under pressure.
Quake eventually releases, somewhat quietly. Romero celebrates by playing Deathmatch late at night with Mark Rain. Despite the challenges, he felt immense pride. The very next day, the conversation with Carmack.
The one where Carmack says...
Yeah, Carmack bluntly states Romero was hurting the company.
Oof, that's the culmination, isn't it? The end of that incredibly successful, but ultimately strained partnership.
Romero reflects on his contributions, the irreconcilable differences in their visions for ID's future, and he reveals he'd already decided to leave and start his own company, Dream Design, before that final confrontation.
So he saw the writing on the wall, felt the need to pursue his own vision independently. Proactive decision.
The public announcements of his departure via his famous Not Plan files ignite a media frenzy. Soon after, Tom Hall decides to leave Ion Storm to join Romero at Dream Design.
Major shift in the industry landscape. Two key creators behind iconic games forging new paths.
Dream Design gets immediate interest. Calls from Activision mark reign at Epic Games. Negotiations with Activision fall through over budget disagreements, though.
Still, that immediate interest shows their reputations right. High anticipation for whatever they did next.
They officially found Ion Storm. Romero outlines his ambitious vision for Daikatana, FPS with strong narrative, evolving enemies. But the huge, maybe premature press coverage Ion Storm gets early on makes both Romero and Hall uneasy.
Yeah, those incredibly high expectations, the intense scrutiny right from the start, creates a challenging, maybe unsustainable environment for a new studio.
Ion Storm acquires the Dominion project from 7th Level. Romero pitches Warren Spector on Deus Ex, promising creative freedom, resources, a separate Austin office, but then Mike Wilson leaves Ion Storm.
So ambitious moves, attracting top talent like Spectre, but also signs of internal instability maybe? Departures hinting at challenges?
Quake 2 launches, big success. Romero admits he's impressed, even though it's a sequel he wasn't involved in. Meanwhile, Tom Hall's making steady progress on Acronox. Spectre's team is working on the promising Deus Ex. And Romero buys a house for his sons and their mom, Kelly.
So while id continues its success, Romero's focused on building Ion Storm and supporting his family.
But those high hopes for Ion Storm start hitting major challenges. Leads to a noticeable downhill trajectory. They even give out team bonuses to try and keep morale up amidst cancellations and bad press.
Yeah, despite the talent and ambition, Ion Storm faced significant hurdles. Sadly, didn't quite achieve that initial vision in the competitive market.
The Columbine High School shooting happens, which Romero says deeply affected him, given his own experiences with violence and loss. Anachronox and the long-delayed Daikatana are shown at E3.
That tragic event underscores the real-world impact of violence, gives a glimpse into his perspective beyond just games.
The Daikatana team works like crazy to get the game finished. Beta release, tons of bug fixes. But the eventual launch comes with the admission that it just wasn't the groundbreaking game they'd hoped for.
Daikatana's troubled development and underwhelming reception became kind of a cautionary tale in the industry, didn't it? High stakes, unpredictable world.
Romero then decides to move to Midway Games in San Diego, wants console development experience. Tom Hall also joins Midway's third-party division. At Midway, Romero works on Project Redwood, an educational RPG for kids. Even puts together a learning design team for it.
Interesting shift. Move into consoles, exploring new genres like educational games, reaching different audiences. Deliberate career move?
He also starts exploring social games. Farmville, Super Poke. Ket's getting fascinated by their design patterns, player engagement. Later, he works as a consultant, gets passionate about teaching kids to code.
Shows his continued curiosity, adaptability to the changing industry, and wanting to give back through teaching, mentorship.
He also becomes more aware of preserving game history, managing his own extensive archives, though sadly, a flood damages a lot of that material.
Yeah, that focus on preservation highlights games being recognized as important cultural artifacts needing documentation. The flood is rough.
His son Donovan comes up with a quirky game idea, Gunman Taco Truck, which gets positive feedback from George Broussard. Romero takes a trip to Ireland with Brenda Garno.
Nice personal touches. Glimpses into life outside game dev. New creative sparks from unexpected places.
Eventually, he returns to concepting a new FPS. Decides to use Kickstarter for funding. And to kind of boost his confidence, reconnect with his roots, he makes a brand new map for the original Doom E1M8B.
Going back to Doom.
Yeah. He also redesigns another classic Doom map, E1M4, tackling his issues with its infamous maze.
Returning to that foundational work, engaging with the community, seems like it reignited his passion for level design for FPS games.
He starts developing Black Room, showing off concepts like glitching environments, summoning weapons, and then embarks on Sigil, his unofficial 5th episode for the original Doom, inspired by Christopher Lovell's Baphomet artwork.
Sigil. That was huge news for Doom fans. A testament to his love for the original, his desire to create new stuff within that universe.
The design of E5M1 in Sigil has this triple nested secret, and each Sigil map is designed to work as both single player and a distinct multiplayer level. And then, incredibly, Buckethead the guitarist, who turns out to be a Doom fan, provides original music.
No way. Buckethead.
Yeah. Including a new track called Romero One Mind Any Weapon. James Paddock also did music for the free version.
Wow. Having someone like Buckethead involved just underscores Doom's lasting impact, right? And the respect Romero still commands.
So we've journeyed through this really formative early life and groundbreaking career of John Romero, all laid out in Doom Guy. And what's undeniably clear is how this mix of experiences, complex family stuff, early passions, those key moments of discovery and collaboration, they all converge to shape this true game dev legend.
And what's really insightful, I think, is how even the difficult experiences, like that instability in his early family life, seem to have acted as a catalyst, fueling his drive, his resilience. He developed this knack for adapting, for creative problem solving, channeling all these diverse life experiences into his work.
Romero's story, as we've talked about it, really makes you think, doesn't it? About your own formative experiences, those unexpected passions that might seem totally unrelated, how they might be subtly shaping your unique path, your potential, even if you can't see the connections yet. What are your unexpected influences? The things quietly guiding you towards maybe creating something impactful. It's definitely a compelling thought to carry with you.